Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Vartika and today we're going to be talking about commerce. I know the last video that I made about commerce is the most viewed video on my channel, and there were so many people who had so many doubts about it in the comments that I feel like I had to make another video. I have been studying commerce for the past, I would say, a year and a half. Not a year and a half, just a year. Yeah, 1 year. So I am in 12th grade right now and have a lot of tips for 11th graders and even 12th graders. I just feel like in the past year that I've studied commerce, I have realized that there are so many things that people don't realize until their 11th grade is over. There are so many mistakes that I've made that I feel like if I share with you all, it's gonna be super helpful. I actually sat down last night, and I'm not at home, I'm on a vacation, but I sat down last night and I wrote down everything that I could remember. It's a long list. I wrote down everything that I could remember, and I'm sitting with my laptop and I'm going to be sharing with you mistakes I made as a commerce student so that you don't make those mistakes and don't lose your marks. As I think about it, I feel like they could have been easily avoided if I did see a video like this. Before getting into the video, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you turn on the notification, turn on the post notification, whatever. Yeah, let's begin. Let me just share a few in general commerce tips with you. Firstly, when you start with commerce, you have to understand your strengths and your weaknesses. You have to understand if you're good at theory or practical, because there are some people who are excellent at theory, so they can memorize very easily. They're very good at writing answers and all of that. I fall into that category. And there are some people who are just really good with practical. They ace practicals, and that will include accountancy and mathematics. I'm sure that if you've reached 11th grade, you do know where your strengths lie. So if you know you're good at theory, you know that you don't have to spend as much time maybe memorizing or writing every answer, and then can use that part of your time practicing practicals. I feel like I spent very little time practicing accountancy and mathematics last year. I don't know why I was that stupid, but I just felt like, you know what, it's not that difficult, I'll manage it. Even if I just read a few examples and a few questions, I'll do it. Biggest mistake. If you're bad at practicals, you need to practice questions, and that's the only way you will understand how to move forward. You will understand what you have doubts in, you'll understand where you're lagging behind, what you're not understanding, whatever. You need to be practicing questions for that. So keep that in mind. Another thing about commerce in general is it's a pretty practical stream. And what I mean by that is, whatever you're studying in theory in commerce are the things that you're going to be seeing in the outside world. And I have spoken about this in my previous video as well. Economics or it's business studies, whatever you're reading, the case studies, the theory part of it, whatever it is, especially in economics, you can actually see those examples happening in real life. So even in our classes, our teachers would ask us to instantly think of the things that we can think. Not mug up any subject in commerce. You have to understand it very thoroughly. A lot of people say this about business studies, that business studies is all about mugging up, you just need to learn everything, you don't, even if you don't understand. That is wrong, because a lot of times there are case studies, and you will not be able to solve case studies if you don't understand the topics really well. But commerce isn't something which is very hard, or which requires oh my god, 10 hours of intense studying. No, it does not. None of your commerce teachers will ever tell you to just study all night and just, oh my god, solve every question and just very mind-boggling questions and all. It is very easy once you find your pattern of studying, get consistent in your studies. You'll find out that commerce in general is not a very difficult stream. It's a very doable stream for whatever type of a learner you are. The thing that has worked for me really well is doing 2 theory subjects in one day and one practical subject. So that can either be like business studies and English along with accounts or mathematics. You have to find your whatever combination that kind of refreshes your brain, and you don't get bored of studying. If you like study theory, practical theory, your mind gets refreshed and you don't forget things, and it's a good way of studying. Like, you're covering a lot if you do 3 subjects, a little bit of each subject every day. You will end up covering a lot of the portion. Pomodoro is super helpful. I have spoken about it in another video as well. The one which I use the most is 10 minutes, I don't know, 15 minutes or something. That works out really well for me. And another thing that worked out really well for me even in 10th grade was the study with me videos that are there on YouTube, especially the rain ones. I love them because I love like a buzzing sound in the background when I'm studying. It kind of helps me to focus. You can try that out if you haven't ever tried that. You can also try studying with your friends. That hasn't worked out really well for me. I mostly end up talking to them and just listening to some music and gossiping about something. But if you and your friend both have that discipline and that dedication to studying, then you can be on a meet or on a Zoom call and study, and yeah, that will also help you to study a lot. Studying in groups, studying in libraries, studying together helps you to kind of focus, because you will not get distracted. Everyone around you is already studying, so what will you do? It kind of forces you to also study. Let's move on to the 1 or 2 tips that I have about each subject. Let's start with accountancy, which is the big bad guy of commerce. One thing that I feel like I regret the most is I did not practice accountancy in class 11th. I don't know why. I just felt like, you know what, I'll just read these. I know why. In the beginning of the semester, I was really good at it. I mean, in the beginning, there were theory chapters, and I told you I'm really good at theory. So I kind of managed to score well. And I was like, oh, this accounts is really easy. And then when the practical part of it came, it is very interconnected to the theory. I was like, you know what, it's not that difficult. I'll solve like maybe 10-20 questions and I'll be good to go. I was wrong. I was not at all prepared for the questions that came. They all came from the book, but because I didn't practice even like 50% of the questions, I did really bad on the tests. I feel like a lot of people just wait and waste their time till the last day, and then they try to solve like 120 questions on the last day. I have done that a lot of times. I do know what that feels like. But guys, solving 10-20 questions every day is not that difficult. It will hardly take an hour, and if you do that every day, trust me, you will not even need to open your books before your exam. You will be that well prepared. Keep that in mind. Just practice accountancy every day. Try to practice accounts every single day, and maths if you can, or maybe alternate, but do it every single day. Don't try to mug up accounts topics or try to like mug up journal entries or just questions. There are some questions that I remember few people around me last year would just like mug up certain things about accounts, and that may work out, but I don't think that's really good for the long run, because a lot of times the questions are very similar but certain parts are changed, and if you have mugged up a previous question, you'll just replicate that answer and your answer will be entirely wrong. Teacher last year used to give us like really tricky questions, so we would fumble those up. Journal entries are the heart and soul of accountancy, so make sure you are really good at that. So if you have any doubts in accounts, don't wait till the last moment, or don't wait कि ये जब मैं सारा पोर्शन खत्म कर लूँगी तब मैं लास्ट में जाके ये करूँगी. I know सबको लगता है कि यार ये भी तो आता ही नहीं है, जो आता है वो कर लेते हैं पहले और जो नहीं आता वो बाद में कर लेंगे. That doesn't work out very well. जो नहीं आता है वो पहले कर लो, उसमें जितना टाइम लगेगा लगाओ and get it done and over with. जो बचा है, whatever you know, it will not take that much time. That's common sense. So yeah, do the hard things first, do the easier things later. Format is also very important in accountancy. It's not very difficult to memorize the formats, they're pretty easy, but make sure you don't mess the format up. That's like the basic rule number one of accounts, is not to mess up the formats. Let's move on to business studies and English. Business studies is such a practical subject, like I am not even joking. CBSE is not a very difficult subject. A lot of people do end up scoring really well, even studying very less. But where people lose marks is the presentation of their answers, and I can help you a little bit with that. So when you're writing business studies answers, you have to remember three things. In the beginning, this works for all type of questions, any question that you get. In the for example, if it's a 6-mark question, and this will also work for English answers, so remember this really well. The first line, or the first 1.5 line or 2 lines, will always be the introduction. You have to introduce the concept. For example, if you're writing an answer in English, always write the author's name and the poet's, or the poet's name, whatever. They always fetch you extra marks. Always write a line about what this poem is about. Like for example, if you're writing just whatever answer you're writing, if you're writing it about like a poem which is about a mother and a child's relationship, you can just be like, this poem written or authored by this author depicts a beautiful relationship between a mother and a son. That should be your first line. If you begin like that, the teacher will know that okay, you know some things, you have studied the chapter, you have studied the answers. After that, in the next 3 to 4 lines, you have to write about the body. Now when you're writing in English, you don't need to make points. I can make a separate video about English. I feel like a lot of people struggle with the presentation and all in English, so I can help you with that. But in business studies, you have to make points. You have to make those icons, those symbols, the points, the arrow, the numbers, the Roman numeral, whatever you do, you have to make points. And I feel like I always make points. I mean, at last year business studies teacher really stressed on it, and he was like, you have to make points. Make points. If you don't write answers in your points, I'm not going to give you marks. Make sure you don't miss that out. Now when you're writing the point, your point should have the first, like for example, if you're writing a point about I'm just giving a very random example about importance of presentation. For example, if you're going to write about that, like presentation fetches a lot of marks and all, you have to write importance of presentation, then give 2 dots or give an equal to sign or give a comma or something, and then write whatever you want to write about that. Shows that you're adding a subheading to each topic, and you also know what it is categorized as. Guys, I have done all these things even in boards, 10th boards in SST and all of that, and these things work really well. Sometimes when you're doubtful about some questions and you try and use these tactics, and you use like the proper presentation method, the conclusion, the introduction, beginning method, you will get a lot of marks. And if your content is not fully, perfect, before you write any answers and exams for business studies along with English, make sure your thoughts are organized. Make sure, like, before writing things down, just organize everything in your head and just try to remember everything, whatever you know of the question, to write it with a pencil somewhere, maybe near the question paper, maybe in the answer sheet somewhere, so you know, and your thoughts are organized and you know what all you exactly have to write. I feel like a lot of times people like forget some things, and then you're writing the answer and then you're, oh my god, I also had to write that, and then you write it like haphazardly, and the teacher also while checking gets annoyed. You're like, what is this person writing? Like this and this, A and B and C and D, nothing makes sense together. Make sure you write it properly in a sequence, and make sure there's some order to your answers. For English, another thing that has worked really well for me is kind of writing summaries of my own, like writing my own summaries to sections of the chapter. I feel like it kind of helps you to understand the chapter better. It helps you to just summarize. Sometimes they just ask you to summarize one part of a chapter or just write a note on one part of the chapter. So when you're prepared already, like for example, you'll already have like 5-6 summaries of all the different sections. You know exactly कि इस बारे में, इस क्वेश्चन में ये किस पॉइंट के बारे में पूछ रहे हैं, कौन से पार्ट के बारे में पूछ रहे हैं. Already deduced on your own, you already written points whatever of your own, so you prepared. There are some words in English that are a little difficult to understand. You don't know the meaning of those words or the phrases or whatever. Make sure that you write down their meaning just below the word or somewhere on the same page, so that when you're reading the chapter before the exam, you go through those words and you do know what they mean. A lot of times when you use the words from your book in your answer, you get a lot of marks, especially in English. If you're using words from the book, like for example, there's a word used to symbolize some other word, or there's some specific word used. If you use the same word while writing your answer, you will get more marks. Teachers do get impressed, guys, trust me. They do feel like, oh, this person has read the chapter and they know that this word is important or symbolic or whatever. So make sure you do that. For business studies, please start learning definitions or start learning the long lengthy answers with keywords or abbreviations. A lot of times when you put like keywords, like what was that thing, oh my god, I don't even remember. I remember things when I'm making these videos, but when you start remembering and memorizing things with keywords, you will understand how easy it actually becomes. Even while revising or while writing down your answers, or while copy में भी जब submit करना होता है, write it down and keep saying out the keyword out loud. You might forget the definition, but you will not forget a 4-5 letter keyword. Your mind is already stressed out and you cannot remember your answers very well. Keywords help a lot. Also in business studies, I feel like examples are very, very important. Even if it's a 2-mark question, if you add a little example and maybe your definition isn't very on point, your teacher will give you marks, because they're like, this person knows where this whatever situation or theory or whatever is applied in real life. So they must know what it is about. Whatever definition answer isn't very on point, but your example is, you will get marks. So make sure you read the case studies in business studies. And if your teacher is giving any real life examples in business studies, make sure to write it down. Like, don't just... Let's move on to economics. Statistics and Indian economics is very doable, and I'm not underestimating the subjects. I feel like they are not difficult per se to understand. You can understand. It's more of practice, and for Indian economics it's more of like memorization. But macro and micro are both very, very new parts of economics. So if you don't spend time understanding every little theory, every little concept of both micro and macro, it's going to be very, very difficult at the end moment during your exam. I made the mistake of just reading the theory. Like for example, micro last year wasn't very difficult. A few topics, a few chapters were a little tricky, but it wasn't very difficult. But the mistake I did was underestimating micro and just being like, oh, it's not that difficult, I can do it. And I didn't read it very well, I didn't study it very well, and at the exam time I struggled. I had to actually leave out 2 chapters because I did not understand it at all. So again, the tip I gave out earlier, don't leave the difficult chapters for the end. Make sure you do it then and there. Even अगर उसमें 1 week, 1 month, 2 months लग जाए, वो chapter खत्म कर लो पहले. I'll also suggest making like a little copy for all your formulas of economics, because there are quite a few formulas in both micro and macro. You can make a little copy. You can also add, like if you're 11th grade, statistics also has a lot of formulas. So just write the statistics formulas and the micro formulas in one little copy. But if you're in 12th grade, write the Indian economics dates, the many dates that it has, and the macro formulas in the same copy. These are all exam last minute tips which will really help you. So I'd like to add English, please stick to the word limit. I feel like I made this mistake and I still make this mistake of just writing my heart out in English, and that doesn't always work. You have to stick to the word limit. You cannot just be writing the entire chapter. So just what I do, I always make, like, for example, if it's a 60-word question, I have to write like 6 to 7, 8 lines maximum. So I like make a dot at the 6th line so that I know even if I've reached the 6th line, I have 1 or 2 lines more maximum I can write, and that helps out a little bit, like mentally also. You're like, okay, fine, my word limit is getting over. Really thirsty, I've spoken a lot. Those were my tips for the day. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you have, I will be making an English specific video super soon, so make sure you're subscribed so you get the notification. I'll see you all super soon, and all the best for your commerce journey, 11th, 12th, whatever. See you all super soon. Bye.